After reading the fascinating accounts of stalking and creep stories on this forum, I was moved to explore what factors might create a stalker or creeper. Here's my case study. Middle-aged female creeper here. Bayakoop creep experience. I might offer a bit of insight as to how I went down this wrong path. My dad was a large, very dominating presence. His word was absolute law, and you could be hit or verbally belittled during any discourse with him. To him, every thought I had was incorrect just because it was mine. Any social situation that went awry, I was always at fault just because I was me. I was told to shut up and follow other people, regardless of whether what they were engaging in was worthwhile or not. My questions were met with "none of your business," or "you don't know what you're talking about." I was kicked up the stairs and hit in the face repeatedly by him, once about 20 times in a row. After he divorced from my mom, he paid the barest minimum to child support. My mom did not want to get a real job. We kids went to school in soiled, ragged clothes, of which we had very few. Classmates taunted me. I was the dirty girl at school that nobody liked. People would yell to take a bath with soap tonight, or some such. I even had a bully that would ride by on his bicycle and try to rip out hair or just flat try to run me down. He and his friends ambushed me, and he hit me in the face with a book and threw all my stuff around the street. My loud mom developed a very strange need to be the center of attention. What few friends I did have, she would monopolize when I had over, like she was competing with me for them. She asked one girl to spend the night. That friend said to me, "It's kind of weird. I never had someone's mom ask me to sleep over before." At the school, Mom would smoke, go braless, and be the loudest parent on the scene, like she wanted everyone to look at her. Then she would mock me for not having enough friends, while I stood there humiliated in my filthy clothes. By my mid-teens, I was about mute outside of the very few friends I was used to. I was physically unattractive to boot, so I couldn't make the dating scene. However, I did develop teenage crushes. I knew I had no chance with these guys, but I wanted to be in their orb somewhere. My friends would help me case their residencies. We would go into the woods behind their homes at night and watch the going-ons through their windows. We'd see family members peering outside the windows, trying to determine what was afoot on their lawns. Since we had darkness on our side, we were never spotted. It must have been very unsettling for them. We spied on at least 3 different guys for me, and even put letters in some of the mailboxes. I checked out their workspaces and scanned for their cars. I can't put a number on how many hang-up phone calls I did just to hear their voices. This was before stalking became a thing. I knew I was guilty of trespassing, but back then, I looked upon their forays into people's private property as no more serious than a parking violation. It took many years before I totally got the importance of respecting others' personal space. Due to my boundaries having been breached by my father's physical abuse and domination, my mom with her invasions into my social relationships and bullies encroaching on me physically and emotionally, I really was that clueless. Plus, the years of rejection due to my involuntary lack of personal hygiene and shabby garments left me with literally no social abilities. My creep behavior continued into college. I had to move out of the dorm due to my roommates being pushed off by my creepy aura. I kept making the mistakes of being needy, clingy, and oversharing. I was so intimidated I was stone silent on some days. I tried an apartment with some add-on roommates. One found my constant presence so cringy she told me I was like a pet dog because I was always home. Finally, I took to living alone. I fell in love with the autonomy and freedom from the looks I used to glean due to my non-existent social life. Oddly, I never felt bored or lonely, just liberated with plenty of choice. Loads of peace of mind. In fact, I was pretty happy and good on staying permanently single since I had long given up the idea of marrying. The only problem was, I still wanted a baby, and my creep factor remained an obstacle. I tried to sign on at a sperm bank that would service single women. I had passed all the physical tests and went on to the interview with their psychiatrist. I guess her creep radar went off, and she told me outright that she would recommend against the clinic signing me on as a client without giving me a clear reason. I was devastated and considered suicide. Then, I dusted myself off and sailed forth. After 6 years of non-stop shoulder to the wheel, I became a mom by the traditional path and had several children. Determined for them to live a normal life, I made damn sure they were well groomed with plenty of clean, attractive clothing. I set the example of being well behaved and reserved in public. I made it a point to stay out of their social lives unless there was a strong reason for me to get involved. There seldom was. I think this somewhat hands-off approach I took towards their friendships paid off for them. Today, they are older teenagers with good relationship skills, light years better than mine. They have jobs and they're in college. High grades, never in trouble with drugs, drinking, or the law. Unfortunately, I think I still gave off a creep vibe to most other parents. There have been only a handful of times where another mom invited me and the kids for fun time with her and her children. I'd really hoped for lots of this mommy camaraderie with other moms, and I'm a bit sad that I barely got to enjoy any. Most other parents seem to welcome my kids to hang out as long as their weirdo mom, myself, kept my distance. Yeah, I'm still a member of the creep set after all these years, but at least I no longer act out in full creep mode. I have given up on the yard, business, vehicle, and phone surveillance I carried out as an obsessive teen. I truly am sorry that I peeped in windows and stalked. My people skills are probably about only 70% of a normal person's on my best days, so I have come a good ways from my absolute zero. I stood out as a young adult, but maybe most importantly, my respect of others' boundaries is now solid. Thank you for listening. Last month, I moved to another country where I didn't know almost anyone. Due to that, I had to spend a lot of time alone and started getting bored. Although I didn't and don't like the concept of Tinder, I decided to create an account to meet people and spend hours swiping left and sometimes right and having brief conversations with my matches. However, most of them were men that wanted to see me on that same day, which scared me a bit. Our story begins when I matched with a 30-year-old girl who didn't wait too long to send me a hi, nor to ask for my phone number. I, who had never used the app before, thought this was normal, and gave my phone number to her without having spoken at all. This was my first mistake. At first, everything seemed normal. The girl, whose name was Diana, sent me voicemails. We talked briefly and in superficial ways about ourselves. She seemed very interested in talking to me, since on several occasions she was double texting me when I didn't answer quickly. And I'm not gonna lie, I found that curious. However, I paid no attention. The second day of talking to her, she asked me to meet her somewhere. And even though our conversations had been very superficial, I said yes, and we set a place and an hour. But hours before our meet, I regretted it, deleted Tinder, and sent her an apology message. That was where things got weird. She texted me that it was fine, but a few minutes later she sent me several messages and deleted them within a second, so I couldn't read them. A couple of hours later, she tried to video call me. I didn't answer and told her I was busy. Despite that, she called me again and again. I kept saying that I was busy, but still, she called me twice at 2 a.m. By that time, I was out and drunk and I blocked her. I felt a little bad about this, but I'm a woman in her 20s in a foreign country, so at the same time I felt relief that it was over, except that it wasn't. I woke up to a hello from an unknown number, which profile picture in WhatsApp was one of an old man. I asked him who he was, and in less than a minute I received an answer. It said, "Hi, it's Diana. This is my dad's number. Why did you block me? Did I annoy you?" Even in spite of how bizarre that was, I tried to empathize with her and answer with the truth. Again, she said that was fine, and I blocked her dad's number. In less than 2 hours, I received another message from another unknown number. It said, "Hi, it's Diana. Why do you keep blocking me? I need to talk to you. Text me." At this point, I no longer found it funny. I tell her that I'm not interested in talking to her, and she literally told me, "I need to tell you something. There's a girl who's harassing me. She knows black magic." I repeat I'm not interested, and she responds, "You don't believe me, do you?" And I blocked her again, for the third time. I really don't know if this was some kind of strange joke, but I can say that my first experience using Tinder was tragic. I wonder if it's always this way, though, because I've been thinking about downloading the app again. At least I know that next time I shouldn't share my phone number with someone I haven't talked to at all. Let's hope for the best. And Diana, let's not fucking meet. The first year of middle school, a lot of things happened that I believe really shouldn't have. About a month before starting, a day before my birthday, I was on my time of the month for the first time. I had to call my friend a few days afterwards to tell her. I was a bit of an early bloomer, so I was one of the first to my friend group to start. Well, later on, this particular friend of mine and I got into a fight, and her retaliation was to start a rumor with me around the school that I was pregnant and had sex with a high schooler. Throughout the day, I noticed people giving me weird looks, and I had no idea what it was about until my friends told me. I came home bawling my eyes out, and my sister knew why. Being in a small town, rumors spread like wildfire, and everyone already knew about it. This girl at the high school my sister was at told her about it. She went off on her. This started a whole chain of events, me crying, figuring out who I was, and my mom at the principal's, not leaving until they promised to do something about it. It slowly started to get better, but walking home from school became a hell. I never learned this guy's name, but the first day, he followed me around on his bike with his best friend. They circled around me, so I had to stop walking, asked me personal questions, which is either staying silent or say something snappy, and just a bunch of things to purposely make me uncomfortable. On the third day, he kept making sexual comments on my body, to the point even his friend said it was too far. After that, he never had his friend with him. I just kind of broke down a few days of it happening. I was always a very shy and quiet kid. I spent most of elementary school not talking. I had no idea how to handle it, and I was scared to ask for help, because I didn't think anybody would believe me or not take it seriously. So I simply just didn't say anything. The last day of it happening, I think it was the worst. He had a group of girls behind him, all cheering him on as he harassed me. One of them yelled and laughed and said, "You should stalk her." He actually agreed with her. I finally had enough and I started screaming and cussing him out. He smirked and said, "Feisty, I like that." I just ran home. I was already at the halfway point. My sister was waiting for me at the front door that day with our dog, so she heard the whole thing. She didn't do that often, but it seemed like perfect timing. She looked panicked and just asked if I was okay or if she needed to hurt someone, and told me I needed to report that to the school. I said I was fine and it was taken care of. She was reluctant but let it go. He walked past my house and our dog jumped in front of me and started growling at him. He just chuckled, which freaked both me and my sister out. A few months before our house had gotten broken into, and because I was home alone a lot, my mom decided to get me a dog to protect me. She's a sweetheart, though, and lets people pet her. He's one of the only people she's ever growled at. I'm really afraid that if I didn't stand up for myself or had a dog, that he would have followed up the threat of stalking me. I only saw him around school a couple times. Once on the school news because he was on the football team and got some award. I almost started crying when I saw it. Then he went up to my lunch table because my friend asked him a question and he stared at me the entire time. The last time I saw him was the last day of school. I was getting things out of my locker and when I walked past him, his breath hitched and he just looked at me the entire time I was in the hallway. There are a lot of reasons I hate that town, but after I graduated from 8th grade, he was the biggest reason why I didn't want to go to the high school there. I'm glad my mom accepted and we moved into the city. I've had to deal with my fair share of creeps, but he was by far the worst of all. So yeah, middle school creep, potential stalker. Let's never meet again. The whole thing unfolded today. Cops were involved. I almost had a panic attack. It was a whole mess. So I'm on a trip backpacking around Europe with my brother, currently in Paris. We're staying at this hostel, and we're in a 10-bunk bedroom. There was this one guy in the room who was immediately super strange. Almost right away, like as soon as we got settled, he starts talking to us about flying to Libya. He's all, "Us, Libya, fly tomorrow." Me and my brother are just like, "No, dude." He keeps saying it. We keep saying no. And he gets progressively more assertive about it. As me and my brother are going about doing sightseeing and things like that, I keep seeing this guy around. When we're at the hostel, he keeps following us to the dining hall, out onto the terrace, and I'm getting more creeped out. My brother, ever the non-assertive soul he is, just laughs it off like the guy is joking. This goes on for 2 days. Well, this morning, we were going out to breakfast and I forgot my phone back in the room, so I told my brother to just go ahead and I ran back to get it. I go in the room and this guy's sitting there. There's no one else in the room and I honestly contemplated just leaving it. But I don't trust it alone in the room, so I planned to just grab it quickly. That morning he was still on about Libya and was essentially bending over our beds going on about it. Despite me repeatedly telling him to stop talking to us, I go in and grab my phone when he suddenly just yells out, "Libya, now! Now we go!" I'm very scared since at this point we are the only ones in the room and I just say fuck off. And I go to leave when he blocks the door and grabs my shoulder, still going on about going to the airport and flying to Libya. I shove past him and run away to where my brother and I were going to breakfast. I decided we were going to switch rooms because this guy was officially creeping me out. We made it back to the hostel, and before we talked to the front desk, we went outside for a smoke, and he shows up. I almost yell at him to leave us alone, and he flat out says no. I go to the front desk and explain that this dude has been harassing us, and we wanted to change rooms. I mention what went down in the room, and before I knew it, the cops were called, and I was given a statement. As they were sorting it out, there were a couple things that jumped out at me. This guy didn't pay in advance. Normally when you're staying in a hostel, you pay the full amount up front, or if you're staying for a while, you pay weekly. He was paying by the day. He had several pieces of ID in his wallet, none of which mentioned his description. Apparently Paris has been having a problem with human trafficking. This guy was escorted out of the hostel by the police. He was banned from staying there again, ever. My brother and I switched rooms and we were given vouchers for free dinners for the rest of our stay here. And now, I'm terrified to go out by myself. I swear, if me and that guy had been alone in a more secluded place that didn't have cameras everywhere, I could have been shipped off to Libya. So, creepy guy from the Paris hotel, let's not meet.